Tonight, former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu remanded in police custody in the UK alongside his wife after their arraignment today for alleged organ harvesting. Trial adjourned to July 7th. Federal government saves 10 trillion naira in 7 years through the implementation of the Treasury single account. INEC registers over 7,000 persons over 4 days in its ongoing youth vote count registration in Abuja.
On business news tonight, federal government inaugurates committee for revival of inactive oil wells to meet OPEC oil quota.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's D-Tigers and the D-Tigress set to return to competitive basketball again as the federal government reverses withdrawal from international competitions.
And from Abuja, Joint Tax Board seeks review of Electoral Act to ensure tax compliance by political office holders.
And in international news from London, doctors in Afghanistan say that many children may be amongst the more than 1,000 people killed in Wednesday's earthquake.
A former Deputy Senate President, Ekweremadu, and his wife, Beatrice, have been remanded in police custody in the UK after being charged with conspiracy to arrange or facilitate travel of another person with a view to exploitation, namely organ harvesting. A couple was arrested 2 days ago and arraigned today at the Oxbridge Magistrates Court, which has adjourned the case until July 7th, 2022. The UK media has been awash with backstories about the intent of Senator Ekweremadu, who was said to have plotted to traffic a 15-year-old boy to the UK and harvest his organs to give their daughter, who has kidney failure, before being arrested at the Heathrow with £20,000 in cash. The child is now set to be under the care of safeguarding authorities in the United Kingdom. According to the Metropolitan Police, an investigation was launched after detectives were alerted to potential offences under modern slavery legislation in May 2022. Our London correspondent, Juliana Lainka, has more.
Well, as the day has progressed, more details have emerged from the first court appearance of the former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu alongside his wife Beatrice. They did appear at Uxbridge Magistrates Court earlier today, charged with conspiracy to arrange or facilitate travel of another person with a view to exploitation. Pretty serious charges, and quite shocking because, of course, we know that Mr. Ekweremadu was once one of the most senior Nigerian politicians. This could potentially become a big diplomatic row. We know that Prime Minister Boris Johnson will soon be in Africa at Kigali because, of course, heads of state are meeting at Courtroom, a time when the Commonwealth was supposed to be celebrating Africa. And now that we have one of the most senior politicians in the country charged with pretty serious human trafficking and organ harvesting charges, something that is very rarely heard of in the United Kingdom, but something that both the European Union and the United Nations have flagged as a serious case to follow because of the migrant crisis, lots of refugees who are fleeing as sometimes victims of this. I know there has been lots of social media speculation as to how this incident may have come about, but of course I am reporting from the UK, so I think it's important to respect child privacy laws. But again, from this trial this afternoon, we have now been informed that Mr. Ekweremadu was travelling from Heathrow to Turkey, where I believe he had £20,000 on his person.
Meanwhile, neither the lawmaker nor his aides have commented on the development, but a source familiar with the issue told Channels Television on condition of anonymity that Senator Ekweremadu's child has been suffering from a kidney disease and needed a transplant. The source says a donor was gotten and sent to the UK for investigation with the aim of providing a kidney. However, the investigation showed the kidney did not match that of Senator Ekweremadu's child. Subsequently, the donor was scheduled to return to Nigeria. According to the source, the donor refused to return to the country and instead reported to the UK police to seek asylum. Back home, the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has convicted Marot Nigeria Limited and ordered that the company be wound up and its entire assets forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria. Marot Nigeria Limited is one of the 30 companies associated with the process, and Industrial Development Limited, PNID, for money laundering. Justice D.U. Okorowo had handed down the conviction of the company after it was found guilty on a 4-count charge bordering on money laundering preferred against it by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. In a statement, the head media and publicity of the EFCC, Wilson Uwujaring, said the commission presented witnesses and tendered many documents as exhibits in the course of trial since it began on February 7, 2022. Part of the counts read that the directors of the non-financial institution failed to comply with certain requirements on extant laws, which is punishable under the Money Laundering Prohibition Act. Marcotte was arraigned for being an accomplice in the $9.6 billion gas supply and processing agreement between the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the PNID. And in Lagos, a division of the Court of Appeal has upheld the conviction of a former managing director of Bank PHB, Mr. Francis Atuche, for 25.7 billion naira fraud. In a judgment delivered today, the court also affirmed the conviction of Atuche's accomplice and co-convict Ugo Anyanwu, who was the bank's former chief financial officer. A 3-man panel in its decision also upheld in part the June 16, 2021 judgment of Justice Latifa Okunu of the Lagos High Court Ikeja by resolving all the issues in the appeal in favor of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, except that of the issue of sentencing. The court equally clarified that Atuche's jail term, as handed down by the lower court, is 6 years to run concurrently rather than 12 years. The justices, however, reduced Anyanwu's sentence from 10 to 8 years. They also upheld the discharge and acquittal of Mr. Atuche's wife, Elizabeth. Mild drama ensued at the Supreme Court, Abuja, when a Lagos-based human rights lawyer, Mr. Malcolm Omorobo, caused a stir when he appeared in court in full traditional attire of a chief priest to attend proceedings. The lawyer said he dressed to court in that manner to exercise his fundamental human rights of following the judgments of the Supreme Court that allowed all Nigerians to express their way of worship and the use of hijab in schools and in public places. In the meantime, the Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms, Dr. Dasuki Arabi, has disclosed that Nigeria has saved about 10 trillion naira from operations of the single treasury account since it was fully implemented by the present administration 7 years ago. Dr. Arabi stated this at the 43rd session of the weekly presidential media team ministerial briefing while providing updates on the performance of the Bureau. A Director General equally hinted at plans to quietly implement aspects of the Orosoye White Paper on civil service reforms. Our State House correspondent Gloria Mizuki reports.
The nation's Bureau for Public Service and the implementation of reforms within was central at the 43rd session of the weekly ministerial briefing in the State House. Nigeria has so far recorded up to 14 reforms across various sectors, including the public financial management reforms, which saw the emergence of the Treasury Single Account, TSA, among other achievements.
Government is able to save over 10 trillion naira over the years, because whatever you are generating now goes into a Treasury Single Account that is managed by somebody else, not you. And government, especially at the top, is always able to see what has come into our Treasury Single Account today and what has gone out of that. So planning has been simplified, budgeting has been simplified. Whatever you do, somebody is watching you, and somebody can request and get those information.
As the Bureau works to uncover corrupt practices, Dr. Arabi maintains that significant levels of transparency and accountability within the integrated payroll and personnel information system have been attained.
With the introduction of IPPIS, about 70,000 ghost workers have been eliminated from the payroll. We have a one-shop opportunity to look at IPPIS and say, as of today, we have 720,000 public servants working for Nigeria. We've been able to reduce more than 220 billion naira wastage through wrong management of IPPIS and payroll by ministries, departments, and agencies of government.
The Director General also hints at plans to quietly implement aspects of the Stephen Orosanye White Paper on civil service reforms, promising full disclosure of its activities in the coming days as he vows to transform Nigeria's public service to be among the top 20 public services in the world by 2025. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
The vice presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, has been received by supporters and party faithful at the Asaba International Airport in Delta State after arriving from the nation's capital, Abuja. For the Delta State governor, the Atiku Okowa ticket will make positive changes to the country if given the opportunity, as its focus will be on youth and women empowerment.
The governor of Delta State, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, returning to a rousing welcome at the Asaba International Airport after his emergence as the vice presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. He arrives in company of his wife and other well-wishers to the tarmac of the airport, where officials of Delta State government are waiting to receive him. With a long list of supporters from various communities in the state, many of those present believe the choice of an Atiku Okowa ticket will salvage Nigeria from its present challenges.
Where man proposes, God does his own. It is God's doing that today you have been made the vice presidential candidate. Let me, on behalf of PDP, thank Atiku Abubakar, who has found in you a worthy man that can lead, that follow him to rescue and rebuild Nigeria.
This is your destiny and nobody can change it. You have made us proud and we stand behind you 24/7, 247. Urobo will never move out behind you. We will stay behind you. Don't forget those migrants that are making noise.
The man of the moment mounts the stage to pass his message and plans of the PDP as he promises to replicate his master plan in Delta State at the national level.
We stand for sure to say the things that we know we can do. I know that this ticket is prepared to impact very strongly on the lives of the Nigerian youth because we feel the pains of the moment. During the administration of Atiku and Okowa, as students, we know and we never be on strike because we understand that education is very important for our youth, it's important for our women, and therefore we will not bring the current pain that the APC government is bringing to our families.
As the 2023 general elections approaches, the level of political activity is also expected to rise. The expectation, however, is that peace will prevail as Nigerians make their choice at the polls.
In part two, after the break, INEC registers over 7,000 persons over 4 days in its ongoing Youth Vote Count voter registration campaign in Abuja. Plus, more on the lawyer who stormed the court in traditional religious attire, saying that he's free to do so after the Supreme Court approval wearing of hijab in Lagos schools. We'll have details. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us to watch the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu remanded in police custody in the UK alongside his wife after their arraignment today for alleged organ harvesting. Trial adjourned till July 7th. Federal government saves 10 trillion naira in 7 years through the implementation of the Treasury single account. INEC registers over 7,000 persons over 4 days in its ongoing Youth Vote Count voter registration campaign in Abuja. And doctors in Afghanistan say many children may have been among the more than 1,000 people killed in Wednesday's earthquake. The All Progressives Congress, the APC, has inaugurated the National Campaign Council for the Osun State governorship election to oversee the re-election of Governor Boyega Oyetola. The council is led by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State and has the governors of Kano, Nasarawa, Kogi, Gombe, Niger and Kebbi as members. At the inauguration, the national chairman of the APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, said the party must brace up to do everything necessary within the law to emerge victorious.
It wasn't easy, but I want to get every one of us to be on the ready. Osun will be more difficult for us because, one, Osun is bigger by population, bigger by number of states, and by number of local governments, sorry, and even landmass, yes, thank you for that. And every local government has a unique characteristic for the kind of problems that we face. We are also told that the governorship, our opposing candidate for the election, we are told that it's a money bag. It's not our business today how he made the money or how he's making the money, but he is recognized as a money bag. So we must be prepared to face him eyeball to eyeball. There is no sparing him for any reason whatsoever. No sparing his party, the PDP, for whatever reason. We are going there to win by the grace of God. And that plan to win, the ability to execute the plan, rests with the leadership that this council is going to provide in the campaign efforts.
Let's switch now to our Abuja studios, where Linda Akigbe is standing by with more on the news at 10. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Now, staying with politics, the number of young people registering to participate in the forthcoming elections in Nigeria continues to rise as INEC records over 7,000 new registrants in the ongoing special campaign for voters' registration by Yaga Africa and the European Union in Abuja. The executive director of Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo, told Channels Television that the number of newly registered people rose from over 1,000 on Monday when the campaign started to over 3,000 on Wednesday.
It's day 4 of the one-week special campaign by the European Union and Yaga Africa to mobilize young people to register for their permanent voters card in Abuja, yet the crowd is still overwhelming. Undeterred by the difficulties in getting through these gates, many young people, including nursing mothers and physically challenged people, remain resolute, doing all they can to get registered.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and the sun was so much.
So the whole process is not easy. It's stressful. It's not easy on anybody. I don't know of others, but for me, that's a man. Imagine those nursing mothers and pregnant women. I wonder what they are going through. It's not easy on anybody.
If they really want us, the Nigerian youth, to come out massively to vote for this presidential election. They should do something about this. The situation outside is horrible.
The Youth Vote Count campaign is specially targeted at mobilizing young people who are 18 years and above to register and vote in forthcoming elections in Nigeria. The organizers say the effort is paying off, but appeal to the electoral umpire to extend the timeline for the registration.
We've registered over 7,000 people in this registration center. The first day, it was over 1,000. Day 2 was about 2,004. Day 3 was 3,000. As you can see today, which is Thursday, day 4, there's also a lot of people who have showed up. Our request is INEC should extend this process. Yes, I think that anything that the Commission can do to give Nigerians an opportunity, to register and vote in the next election should be done.
The Independent National Electoral Commission registered over 84 million voters for the 2019 general elections. But the Commission is targeting a new peak of 120 million registered voters before the general elections next year.
The Joint Tax Board, an umbrella body for tax administration across the 3 tiers of government, is seeking the amendment of the nation's Electoral Act to ensure tax compliance for political office seekers. The move, according to the tax administrators, will improve the nation's tax to GDP ratio, which is urgently needed to meet the government's expenditure and infrastructure needs. Speaking at a meeting in Abuja, the acting chairman of the board, Mr. Monday Onyeme, explains that Nigerians at all levels must comply with the nation's tax laws to further boost the tax base.
Give an assessment. I want to say
it's the 150th meeting of the Joint Tax Board, and representatives of state inland revenue agencies, government ministries and departments are in attendance.
Necessary regulations and rules.
The meeting is coming after a previous meeting with INEC and heads of anti-corruption agencies, where the issue of tax evasion by politicians was discussed. This time, members of the board are seeking to improve the nation's tax collection system, beginning with the politicians. The acting chairman of the Joint Tax Board is excited at the recommendations made, but wants tax compliance extended to all classes of Nigerians, especially those in business.
Why we are saying politicians, we need to capture them to pay their taxes as it is, which is correct. We should also begin to think of ourselves. It is also possible that, there are some of us here who own businesses here and there, no matter how small, outside our official income. And we ask ourselves, the income that are coming from these businesses, are we paying taxes on them? So it's a national, it's a general thing. That's what I'm trying to say. While we are looking at politicians, we should also look at ourselves.
It is how we interpret it and how courageous we are and how creative we are. We don't have any issue in Ondo State about people paying taxes, politicians paying taxes. The only issue we have is whether they are paying based on all their income, but that they will not pay is not possible.
In her presentations, a renowned tax expert makes a case for more political will on the part of government, a review of the Electoral Act to make tax compliance a prerequisite for political office holders, and more empowerment for the judiciary to penalize defaulters.
They need to amend the electoral law to specifically require full and effective tax compliance as a basis for eligibility for public office. They also need to build trust in the legislative process by considering the social contracts with their constituencies to ensure non-compliance is not rewarded with taxpayers' money.
Taxation is a sustainable source for government revenue and has proven to be a source of funding for budget deficits and meeting infrastructural needs.
The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Catriona Lang, has announced that the UK government will be investing a total of £15 million to fight cybercrime among countries in the Commonwealth. Speaking to journalists in Abuja, Ms. Lang explains that cybercrime constitutes security challenges to most member nations and should not be taken lightly. She notes that the UK government, in collaboration with the heads of the Commonwealth of Nations, is also looking at how to raise the gross domestic product of Commonwealth countries.
adapting to the inevitable consequences of climate change. As you said, we're seeing increasing droughts in the Horn of Africa. We're seeing increasing floods, including in Nigeria. So adaptation as well as mitigation, by which I mean helping countries get onto a lower carbon pathway, is crucial. And a commitment was made to developed countries to provide $100 billion of finance a year. We took stock at COP26 and we weren't quite on track for that, but we're nearly there. But I'm pleased to say that commitments are increasing and we're expecting $115 billion a year by 2025. So over the period 2021 to 2025, we should be hitting something more like $500 billion a year. But having said that, that is still not enough. I mean, the kind of funding we need for both mitigation and adaptation goes into trillions of dollars. So the private sector is ultimately what will enable us to collectively respond. But public finance can catalyse, can leverage, can provide grant finance to support the more kind of loan type instruments when necessary. So I think we need to do better, frankly, but I'm pleased to say we're getting there and we're nearly on track.
Still ahead on the news at 10, federal government inaugurates committee for revival of inactive oil wells to meet OPEC quota. That's on Business News. Plus, lawyer storms court in traditional religious attire, says he's free to do so after the Supreme Court approves of wearing of hijab in Lagos schools. Join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja. The Southwest Security Network, codenamed Amotekun Corp, say they have arrested some persons in connection with the massacre of worshippers at St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, on June the 5th. Although the police is yet to comment on the development, the commander of the Corps, Adetunji Adeleye, announced this while addressing journalists in Akure, the state capital.
The suspects were arrested within the last 1 month for various offenses ranging from armed robbery, cattle rustling, suspected kidnappers, cultists, fraudsters, and human traffickers. A number of people have been arrested concerning the Owo issue. A number of people, a number of equipment, and I have told you for free, the last vehicle they used before they jumped into the bush, we pursued them to that point, and we are still pursuing them. We'll get to the root of it.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thank you, Linda. The federal government has inaugurated the 7.85 Isoko Ring Road linking Uzere and Aviara communities with an advice to road users to drive safely at all times. Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, who commissioned the road on behalf of the president, says the road is part of efforts by the federal government to improve road infrastructure and connect all communities, especially those in the rural areas.
Uzere and Aviara are neighboring communities where most residents depend on agriculture for their livelihood, and road is essential for them to move their wares to the markets.
Before, the time this road where it is, they never do them. With the suffer well, we not the fee, waka they go bush.
Gathered here for the formal commissioning of the 7.8-kilometer road linking the two communities are the Minister of State of Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari, Delta State government officials, the Federal Controller of Works in Delta State, Jimo Olawale, and the Deputy Director, Highways, South-South Region, Peter Umore. They highlight some of the projects already completed by the federal government in various states across the Federation.
From a combination of air resources and borrowings, this occasion affords the opportunity to restate that in addition to our innovative sources of funding, our budgetary provisions are also being diligently applied to complete projects such as this.
For the Delta State government, The project is as a result of the partnership between the federal and the Delta State governments, and they say this should lead to more collaboration.
This ring road being commissioned today became the saving grace that provided access to the community while the state government worked assiduously to provide a palliative solution and also liaised with the federal authorities for a permanent solution to the breach on this important federal road, linking several communities in Delta State and Bayelsa State.
The Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, formally inaugurates the project.
This road has been built to the highest quality of design and workmanship, and if it is well used and not abused, it should last for the designed service life.
The event also created an opportunity for the federal government to reiterate its resolve to complete the second Niger Bridge before the end of the current administration.
Kigali summit on malaria has seen heads of state and government committing to accelerating progress in the fight against malaria and neglected tropical diseases, alongside leaders from the private sector, philanthropy, civil society and multilateral agencies. The host president, Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Mogwitsi Masisi, His Royal Highness Prince Charles, and the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, shared victories, made pleas and gave encouragement to everyone to be part of the progress that is certain if the world collectively contributed to the efforts to eradicate tropical diseases.
What we need now is leadership. Leaders who believe, leaders who have hope.
And that's exactly what the leaders gathered here tried to do, to look at ways to lead the world, especially countries in the tropics, out of the clutches of malaria and neglected tropical diseases, NTDs. The theme was unlocking the potential, ending malaria and NTDs to build a better world.
Ensuring that all African countries mobilize the domestic financial resources required for quality health care is a priority for the African Union and our partners. If there is one thing the pandemic has taught us, it is that together, through coordinated and collaborative action, we can achieve much more.
It is really inspiring to see so many Commonwealth leaders talking to one another to ensure that life-saving medical, material and preventative supply chains can keep flowing across our borders. Similarly, we know that this is a battle that is fought on the ground in local communities and by citizens themselves. In this regard, we acknowledge and give particular thanks for the tireless efforts of community health and prevention workers.
The neglected tropical diseases are a group of about 20 tropical diseases like river blindness, leprosy, rabies, sleeping sickness, and dengue fever. Several panel discussions included talk about building resilient healthcare systems by integration of efforts, the involvement of youth champions, the place of innovation and new tools, and especially access to innovation were raised.
On the benefits of integrating malaria and neglected tropical diseases, so the interventions, the resources, and how this will contribute to broader strengthening of health systems, which will then in turn be able to deliver services for all these diseases and for others, and bring us to a healthier and safer world.
The Kigali Declaration came with commitments from financial to tablets, as well as other healthcare products.
So for our part at the Gates Foundation, we're stepping up our commitment and we're pledging $140 million over the next 4 years to support African institutions in fighting malaria.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari was represented by Health Minister Dr. Osagie Hanire, who participated in the earlier panel discussions and gave a picture of Nigeria's progress so far, some challenges, as well as appealed to participants to join efforts to make things much better.
I'm pleased to say my country has recorded gains in reducing the burden of malaria at NTDs and averting millions of malaria infections and deaths, as reported in the 2021 World Malaria Report. In spite of COVID-19 induced restrictions, Nigeria distributed over 17 million long-lasting insecticide-treated nets for vector control. LLIN prevents not only malaria, but also NTDs transmitted by mosquito vectors.
There may be a few areas where I believe we need to focus is, one, we have to focus on health promotion and disease prevention. That has to be at the center. And then for that to happen, building primary health care is important. So we should focus on building primary health care.
The one-day summit has come to an end with a declaration and commitments, and the Director General of the WHO says his organization proudly endorses the declaration, but challenged everyone to now go forth and walk the talk.
Business News is next. Here's Anne Mawudu.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has inaugurated a committee for the revival of inactive oil wells in a bid to boost the country's crude oil production. And this is coming as the country's crude oil production output has dropped from 2.5 million barrels per day to the present 1.02 million barrels per day as at May this year. The NUPRC Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Benga Komolafe, says the nation has suffered significant loss in crude oil production, especially in land and swamp terrains, due to crude oil theft, pipeline vandalism, and lack of investment. Meanwhile, the Senate has constituted an ad hoc committee to investigate Shell Petroleum Development Company over non-compliance with the Petroleum Act and breach of the joint agreement entered into with the federal government. The ad hoc committee has been mandated to probe the oil mining lease granted to SPDC between 1959 and 2019 under the SPDC-NNPC joint venture agreement. Also, the upper chamber is demanding a refund of $200 million to the federal government, including penalties and interest under the said lease agreement. The federal government has insisted the pump price of petrol must remain at 165 naira per litre across all filling stations in Nigeria. This was made known by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Meanwhile, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, has backtracked, saying that it will now sell at a government-approved price of 165 naira, while asking Nigerians to stop panic buying. On Monday, IPMAN had declared a petrol pump price of 180 naira per litre. We head to the equities market now. It has recorded 3 straight sets of positive trading. Investors are still gaining about 130 billion naira. Will Ibong tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the stock market report. And the NGX was able to hold on for a third day of gains. The all-share index rose nearly 0.5%, growing by another 131 billion naira. However, volume of trades was about 2.7% down from yesterday, and value hitting a 10% decline in over 4,000 deals. Unilever, Nigerian breweries, and Honeywell Flour contributed to the pullback of the consumer goods index, while the banking and oil and gas indexes bounced in today's session. Meanwhile, Ella Lake's reversed positions from yesterday to leading the decline in stocks. FBN Holdings moved up the ladder today to claim the top spot on the gainers list. The stock regained its 2-digit share price, followed by FTN Cocoa Processing and Consolidated Hallmark Insurance. Baby steps, and the NGX may reclaim its 52,000 level this week. And that's the stock market report. I'm Will Ibong. Back to you.
Thanks for watching Business News Tonight. I'm Anne Mawudu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Anne. You may have seen it today, a mild drama ensuing at the Supreme Court in Abuja when a Lagos-based human rights lawyer, Mr. Malcolm Omoribo, caused a stir in court when he appeared in full traditional attire of a chief priest to attend court proceedings. The lawyer said he dressed to court in that manner to exercise his fundamental human rights, following the judgments of the Supreme Court that allowed all Nigerians to express their way of worship and the use of hijab in schools and in public places.
I'm a traditionalist, and I've been missing all along until the Supreme Court gave the judgment on Friday that people cannot appear in their religious attires of worship in their place of school and public school for that matter. So in this circumstance, I just interpreted everything. I said, yes, they have done the right thing by giving us, helping us guaranteeing more our rights under Section 38 of the Constitution that gives us, every Nigerian citizen, the freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. That we are free from that decision that female students can wear hijab because it is the mood of their worship, and any attempt to stop them from wearing it amounts to a violation of their fundamental rights.
Beyond our shores now, African doctors say many children may have been killed in Wednesday's 6.1 magnitude earthquake. More than 1,000 people died in the disaster. Heavy rain, threadbare resources, and rugged terrain are hampering rescue workers. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Doctors in Afghanistan say that many children may have been killed in Wednesday's earthquake. More than 1,000 people died in the disaster and heavy rain. Unknown numbers were buried in the rubble by the magnitude 6.1 earthquake. The Taliban authorities have called for more international aid, while communication networks have also been badly hit. The United Nations is among those scrambling to provide emergency shelter and food aid to remote areas in the worst-hit Paktika province. Even before the Taliban takeover, Afghanistan's emergency services were stretched to deal with natural disasters, with few aircraft and helicopters available to rescuers. Ukraine is set to be approved as an EU candidate at a Brussels summit after a European Commission gave the green light. Ukraine applied days after the Russian invasion in February, and the process has since moved at a record speed. Its ambassador to the EU said it would be a psychological boost for Ukrainians. Candidate status is the first official step towards EU membership, and France said this week there was a total consensus on Ukraine. But it can take many years to join, and there's no guarantee of success. Myanmar's deposed pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been moved from house arrest to solitary confinement in a prison in the capital Naypyidaw.
Yet it is of the utmost importance.
The 77-year-old Nobel laureate was arrested when the military ousted her elected government in February 2021. For the past year, she has been held at an undisclosed location in the capital. Ms. Suu Kyi has already been sentenced to 11 years in jail and faces a host of other charges. She denies all of the allegations against her. The final part of a mammoth report into alleged corruption in South Africa under former President Jacob Zuma has been handed to his successor, Cyril Ramaphosa. It was all smiles and laughs at the official handing over of the report, but the contents are far more serious. Within the 5,000 pages written by Judge Raymond Zond, the report describes how the country's coffers were looted by its former president and his associates, the prominent Gupta brothers. It also accuses Zuma of halting an investigation into alleged financial misdeeds by the Guptas. They and Mr. Zuma deny any wrongdoing. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said he would defend his government's immigration partnership with Rwanda if the heir to the British throne, Prince Charles, were to raise it with him when the two meet. British newspapers have reported that Prince Charles has privately criticised the plans. Boris Johnson has been in Kigali for a meeting of Commonwealth leaders, where he met with Rwandan President Paul Kagame to speak about the partnership. Earlier this year, Britain struck a £120 million deal with Rwanda to deport asylum seekers to the East African country. It has been criticised by opponents, charities and religious leaders who say it is inhumane.
I think that, you know, anybody who comes here, and I'm delighted that all the Prince Charles and everybody is here today to see a country that is, I think, undergone a complete transformation, or a very, very substantial transformation. And
are you willing
to
defend the policy should he raise it?
I think that people need to keep an open mind about the policy. The critics need to keep an open mind about it. I think a lot of people can see its obvious merits. And yeah, of course, if I'm seeing the Prince tomorrow, I'm of course going to make that point.
Thousands of indigenous people have protested in Ecuador's capital city, Quito, demanding the president address the sharp rise in fuel and food prices. The country has been gripped by protests for 10 days. Nationwide, 114 police officers have been injured and 104 people detained. The demonstrations are longer lasting and larger than marches over fuel prices in October last year. The protests are testing President Guillermo Lasso's ability to restart the economy. And finally, a drone has flown over Italy's longest river, revealing a large sandy area where the river once was. The Po is experiencing its worst drought for 70 years, leaving many sections of the vast northern waterway completely dried up, jeopardizing irrigation and worrying locals. The 652-kilometre-long stretch runs across the entire Po Valley from west to east and holds the record for the largest river basin in Italy, with approximately 71,000 square kilometres of surface area. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you so much, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The federal government has reversed its decision to ban Nigeria's basketball teams from participating in all international competitions for 2 years. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Youth and Sports Development, Ismaila Abubakar, disclosed this at a news conference in Abuja today. Mr. Abubakar says despite the approval, the basketball stakeholders were warned to ensure that the Nigeria's law or the country's law are not subjugated to any other laws.
President Muhammadu Buhari, being one that is committed to youth development and desirous of ensuring that they are availed of all opportunities in sports and other endeavors, considered the appeal. And in the overriding spirit of national interest, love for our youth, and in order to avoid sending basketball development into a long period of suspension, when MBBF have now committed to resolution of the issues which precipitated the withdrawal in the first place, has approved the return of Nigeria to international basketball immediately.
The Bureau of FIFA has approved the increase of World Cup squads for the 2022 FIFA World Cup to 26 players. Now, participating teams have until November the 13th to name a 26-man squad for Qatar 2022. And that's a wrap in Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu was today remanded in police custody in the United Kingdom alongside his wife after their arraignment for attempted alleged organ harvesting. The trial has now been adjourned until July 7th. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.